How's it going? I'm Jared Gillis. Today, I want to share with you my ultimate guide for maintaining our RV ACs. It's how we keep them running smoothly, efficiently, and consistently. It's way more than just cleaning the AC filters. It's basically 5 steps to maintain the unit, get it working good, and to extend its life. So let's not waste any time, let's get right into it. So now to start off, we have an inside portion and an outside portion to our maintenance. And it might be a little bit backwards, but I'm gonna start outside because it's early in the morning and it's gonna be a lot easier to do this if it's not hot. So usually this is best in the spring, the fall, early morning, or on a cloudy day. So I have a cloudy morning that will extend the time that I have to do this. Really doesn't take that long, but the extra time will be nice. So first off, I'm going to turn off the power to the units. Then I'm gonna put together the things that I need on the roof, like coil cleaner, needle nose pliers, a screwdriver, a drill, a spray bottle, a multimeter, a rag, and I'm gonna put that all into a bucket, or however you'd like to get all this up onto the roof the easiest way possible. Then I wanna take the cover off of the AC. It's usually just a handful of screws and then the cover lifts off. But then we also want to remove whatever is going to be covering the evaporator coil. So on here, we can see that this is styrofoam. That's what keeps it insulated and keeps the inside air separate from the outside air. So we want to take this cover off as well. And that will expose the evaporator coils, which is what we want to start cleaning first. So I'll oftentimes take a rag or sometimes a piece of cardboard and cover that return air hole so that we don't drop any debris or get any of the cleaner solution down inside the RV. Then the coil cleaner I like has a cap that has a brush for cleaning the coils. Not all of them have it, but I find that these caps work better oftentimes than the brushes that are made for it. So we just want to use that cap to get any of the debris off of that we possibly can. So when I'm cleaning this, I take the brush from the bottom all the way up because you want to be really careful of all the fins. They bend out of shape really easily. The great thing about this cap is it usually does a pretty good job of aligning them, and if there's any problem areas, oftentimes you can get those worked out just by using the brush over that area several times. You want these fins straight because if they're bent, it's going to restrict the airflow and it's not going to work as well. So getting these fins straight and clean is key to this working the best that it can. Then I'm going to use the spray foam and spray it into the coil. You can see it really getting in between each of those fins. And this foam is really going to get in there and it pulls a lot of that dirt out. You just want this foam to be able to sit on there and do its work, getting it in every portion of it. And you're gonna spray it on the side that's receiving the air. You'll know it because it's the dirty side of it. So as that foam does its work, we can swing over and test the capacitor and the compressor. For the capacitor, they can hold a charge. So as I'm getting this out, I'm gonna be really careful. Using pliers to take the wires off the end, being careful not to touch the terminals at the top. To discharge it safely, we're gonna set our multimeter on volts AC, and this capacitor just has 2 terminals on top. So with the multimeter on the volts AC, going to discharge it. You can then take your needle nose pliers, touch it in between the 2 terminals to make sure that it is discharged, and now it's safe to be able to work with it. So what we're going to do is we need to turn our multimeter to microfarads. So this is how we're going to test to see if the capacitor is in good working order. Some of them might look a little bit different. Some might have the HERM and the fan and the common. So what you're going to do when you're testing these is the information is going to be written on the side, and then you test it with the microfarads to make sure that it matches the number that's stated on it. And it usually gives you like a plus or minus 5 to 6%. So as long as you're within those parameters, you know that you're good to go. So for example, we have this capacitor that has the HERM and the fan. So from the common, we're going to go to the fan and we're going to get 4.95. We look on the side, it says that it needs to be at 5. We're within that plus or minus 5%. On the HERM, we're reading 44.85, which on the side it's saying we need to be at 45. Again, we're within that 5%. So we know that this capacitor is good. Some ACs have it where it's combined like it is on this capacitor, and some have 2 capacitors and some will have 1. But it's always going to be stated on the side, and then you just test it with those numbers on the top with the microfarad setting. So we can put those wires back in place, mount that back in there, and then we can check our compressor. Because if it does go out, it is time to replace your AC. And if you do need to replace it, I highly recommend etrailer. They've been a sponsor to the channel for quite a while. They have a huge selection of RV products, especially RV ACs. They have a wide variety of different price points, different functions, different features. They have the Furrion Chill Cube. So they really have a lot of great options if you need to replace the AC on your RV. So link will be down in the description to etrailer. And if you had a question about one of the ACs, their customer service is great at getting you the information that you need so you can make the right choice. So testing the compressor, what we want to do, because oftentimes these labels are difficult to read over time, we want to remove the cap that's on there. And so we're going to have an S, an R, and a C. We're going to set our multimeter on ohms for testing the resistance. And if we go between the C and the R, we get 1, and the C and the S, we get 2.1. So if we add those two together, it should give us what the R and the C test out to, which is 3.1. The other thing we can do to test is to test the common to the outside case of the compressor to see if those coils are starting to come apart on the inside. We want to see an OL here. We don't want to see any kind of resistance reading. So everything checks out here. The health of the compressor and the capacitor is doing great. So we can put the wires back together and we can put the cap back on the compressor and move back over to our evaporator coils. This is where our squirt bottle comes into play. We want to rinse off any of the leftover foam or debris that's on there and rinse it all the way out. The key is why I like to rinse these off, because this is a no needed rinse formula, is I like to rinse it down and make sure all the debris gets out, because some of the holes are pretty small. And if any of this debris gets stuck in those holes, it's not going to drain out and it's going to drip on the inside of your RV. So making sure you get all this out and the debris out is really going to save you down the road. It's worth taking the extra step to make sure that it's rinsed off and no debris is left in there. Now we can clean our other coils, which are typically not as dirty, but on a heat pump, they definitely do collect more. So this is a heat pump. So again, I'm going to use the cap to get any of that debris off. And then again, with the foam, let that foam get in there, get the rest of those fins clean. And then after it's done its work, you can rinse it off as well. Again, making sure all that debris gets fully out, which is the majority of everything that we need to do up here on the roof. So we can put everything back together, getting the covers put back on the evaporative coils and getting the main cover put back on the AC. And this is where we want to protect the cover of the AC. So whether you use a 303 protectant or you decided to paint your cover, we want to get it protected from the sun so that this plastic doesn't get brittle. Okay, that wraps up here. Let's do the maintenance inside. Now, the inside is a pretty short list. We really have three main things to do in here. Number one is going to be cleaning the filters. These are real easy to just be able to take out, and you want to just clean all the dust that it's collected off of them. So you can either vacuum it off, which I like to do, but then I also like to rinse them off as well. So if you have time to do this before you go on the roof, it's a good idea to do this so that you can let those dry out after you kind of pat them dry. One thing that's kind of tempting for a lot of people is they want to get a thicker filter to be able to catch more of the dust that's in here before it goes to the AC unit, so you don't have to clean that evaporative coil as much. But when you restrict that airflow at that filter, it becomes a problem. So it's better to resist that temptation and just clean the filters that are there and not go with something thicker. So that's a pretty simple step, cleaning those filters. But the next one is going to be making sure that our air is not mixing up in there, that we don't have any air leaks in between the return air and the cold air that's coming out of the AC. Both of these are good because the Gree has that channel so that it cannot mix. And the Coleman Mach, we have the RV airflow system in there, so that makes sure that the return air and the cold air cannot mix. But if you have one that's pretty typical, there's usually just a divider in there, and oftentimes there's gaps and all kinds of things like that. And if you don't seal that up properly, that air mixing will create all kinds of inefficiencies. It'll cause it to short cycle, freeze up, or really just struggle. So you want to make sure that that's sealed up so you don't have any air mixing in that area. This one's honestly pretty important. When you think about airflow, that's really king in making this entire system work. And if you're restricting or mixing that airflow, it's just flat out not going to work that well. So take your time, make sure this is done right. And while you have this open, this is a perfect time to look for any water leaks that are around the AC. There's a gasket underneath there that gives you your water seal. And sometimes you need to tighten it down just a little bit so that you don't have any water intrusion. Now, resist the urge to over tighten that But if you have a little bit of water coming in and you tighten it down just a little bit, it should solve that problem. If it doesn't, then you probably need a new gasket underneath your AC. But doing all these steps, putting them all together, cleaning those fins, getting them straightened out, checking the capacitor to make sure that it is within spec and not failing, and maybe even ordering a backup, checking the compressor to see what the health of it is, taking care of that AC cover, making sure it's protected from the sun, and making sure that the interior has good airflow. So keeping those filters clean, keeping the air from mixing. You should have an AC that's working at the best that it possibly can, and it's going to last longer because you're protecting, and causing it to not have to work harder than it really needs to. So anyways, I think that's going to do it for today. I hope this helps you out so you can make your AC work better and last longer. So as always, if we don't see you on the road, hopefully we will see you next video. Take care.